They said I was just the daughter, not the heir, not the one who'd carry on the family name. My mother once told me girls don't inherit homes, they marry into them. So everything went to my brother. The house his, the savings his, even my father's watch gone from my hands. They kicked me out, said I didn't belong, said I should build my own life. So I did, quietly, painfully, strategically. And 3 years later, when they were drowning in debt, I bought the house they lived in. Not to get even, but to remind them, I never needed permission to come home. Just the deed. I was born second. But I learned early, second didn't mean equal. In the Carter family, being second meant invisible. My name is Emily Carter, born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky. My brother, Nathan, was born 2 years before me, and somehow that made him the chosen one. When we were kids, Nathan got the new toys, I got his hand-me-downs. He got guitar lessons and basketball camp. I got chores and silence. But it was never just about the things. It was the way my parents, especially my mother, looked at him. Like he was the investment, the legacy. Me, I was the footnote, the placeholder until a husband came along. You'll marry well, she used to say, flipping pancakes. A good girl like you always does. But I didn't want a husband. I wanted opportunity. I wanted recognition. Nathan scraped by in high school, graduating with a 2.5 GPA. They bought him a car. I graduated with honors. Top 5 in my class. Mom gave me a pat on the shoulder and told me not to rub it in. Nathan got into a local college, and my parents paid for everything. Tuition, rent, even a weekly grocery allowance. I got into the University of Kentucky on partial scholarship. Mom said I'd learn responsibility by covering the rest. I worked nights at a diner 10-hour shifts, studied in the break room, slept 4 hours a night. Nathan failed his freshman year, dropped out, and moved home. They welcomed him like a hero, cooked his favorite meals, gave him back his old room, said he just needed time. Meanwhile, I was still sending money home, still believing that being the good one meant something. But being good didn't matter. Not in a house where your value was measured by gender. Dad got sick the year I turned 27. Pancreatic cancer fast, merciless, and final. I came home every weekend, taking the 90-minute drive from Louisville without fail. I fed him soup, helped him bathe, changed his sheets. Nathan came once. Once? He took a picture holding Dad's hand, posted it online with a crying emoji, and left the same night. The day Dad passed, I was sitting right beside him. I held his hand when he stopped breathing. Nathan showed up 30 minutes later, wearing sunglasses, looking inconvenienced. At the funeral, everyone kept saying how strong he was, how he must be carrying such a heavy burden. I stayed quiet, let them believe their fantasy. But I hoped foolishly that in death, Dad would finally see me, that maybe, just maybe, I'd find my name in the will. The day we met with Dad's lawyer, I wore the pearl earrings he gave me when I turned 16. My hands were sweating. I remember watching the lawyer open the folder. He cleared his throat and said everything was left to Nathan. The house, the land, the savings, even the rusted old toolbox Dad and I used to fix the kitchen sink. There was no mention of me. I didn't speak, didn't move, didn't cry. It felt like the air had left the room, like I had never existed. Mom leaned over and touched my hand, smiling gently. You're still young, sweetheart, she said. You'll find a nice man. You'll have a house of your own someday. My ears rang, my heart pounded in my chest. I stared at the papers in front of me, each word a blade. She had erased me, erased the years I cared for him, erased the nights I stayed awake rubbing Dad's feet when the pain became unbearable. All for what? Because I wasn't a son. That night, I walked into my old bedroom and started packing. The walls were still the same pale yellow I painted them in high school. The floor still creaked in the same spot by the window. I left behind the posters, the books, the worn-out teddy bear Nathan gave me when I was 6. Tried to leave behind the anger, too. Didn't work. They gave me 2 weeks to move out. 2, no offer to help, no mention of love. Just a printed lease termination form signed by my own mother. Every night in those 2 weeks, I lay in bed listening to the hum of the old ceiling fan, wondering if I had imagined the love I thought once lived here. I cleaned the bathroom. I vacuumed the stairs. Not because they asked me to, but because I needed to say goodbye my way. I watched Nathan stroll through the halls, joking on the phone with someone about his new place. I wanted to scream, wanted to ask him if he remembered the summer I taught him algebra just so he wouldn't flunk out, but I didn't. I kept quiet. On the last morning, it rained. Thick gray clouds, cold wind, the kind that chills you even under 3 layers of clothes. I loaded my car slowly, box by box. As I closed the trunk, I looked up at the house one last time. The curtains in the living room fluttered. Someone was watching. I didn't wave, didn't cry, just walked, But inside, I made a silent promise. You think you've erased me, but I will write myself back in. And when I do, it'll be in ink you can't wash away. When I left Lexington, I wasn't running. I was regrouping. I moved into a cramped apartment in Louisville, the kind with peeling linoleum floors and a toilet that ran all night. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. I found a job as a leasing assistant at a local real estate office. It paid just above minimum wage, and the office air conditioner rattled like a dying animal. But I showed up early, stayed late, listened more than I spoke. Mr. Larkin, the branch manager, was a crusty old man who'd worked real estate since the 80s. He called me kid and never remembered my name, but I watched him, watched how he negotiated, how he closed. I memorized the contracts, read zoning regulations at night like they were bedtime stories. Every time I got my paycheck, I split it 60% to savings, 40% to survive. I didn't buy new clothes. I didn't eat out. I didn't date. I made a plan. In year 1, I paid off my student loan. In year 2, I got promoted. By year 3, I was leading investor acquisitions for the firm, managing portfolios that were bigger than anything I thought I'd touch. My coworkers started calling me the closer, but I never told them why I worked so hard. They didn't know about the house, didn't know about my mother or Nathan. They didn't know that every time I signed a deal, I imagined signing over my pain. Real estate became my language, my armor, and in that armor, I became something new. I started attending auctions not to bid, not yet, but to observe. Courthouse steps, sheriff sales, private liquidations. I learned who the serious players were, learned how they bid, when they hesitated. And then one Tuesday morning, exactly 3 years and 1 month after I left Lexington, I saw it. 48 Maple Ridge Road, my childhood home, listed for foreclosure, final auction in 30 days. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. The house they threw me out of. The house they said I didn't belong in. It was slipping through their fingers. I didn't call anyone, didn't rant, didn't scream. I closed my office door, leaned back in my chair, and breathed. Then I got to work. I didn't want my name anywhere near the deal. I created an LLC, Everhart Capital, cold, professional. I funded it through silent investors, myself included. I transferred money from 3 accounts to keep it clean. Then I called a friend in title services and made sure no flags would alert Nathan or Mom. And I waited. The morning of the auction, I wore a plain black suit and sunglasses. I didn't need to go in person, I had a proxy, but I wanted to be there, to feel it. There were a few other bidders, mostly investors. Nathan wasn't there. He probably thought he had time, thought the bank would work with him, thought someone would save him. He didn't know the buyer was already in the room. The bids started low. 1 dropped, then another. Only 2 remained. When the final round hit, my proxy raised the offer one last time. The other bidder hesitated, then dropped. Gavel, slam, sold. 48 Maple Ridge was mine. Not in name, but in full legal ownership. I didn't drive by, didn't text anyone. I went home, ate leftover spaghetti, slept 8 hours straight for the first time in years. 3 days later, the official paperwork arrived. I held it in my hands like a relic. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. 2 weeks later, I sent the notice. Certified mail, return receipt requested. 1 copy to the house, 1 to Mom's P.O. box. No note, no explanation, just a simple declaration. The property now belongs to Everhart Capital. 3 days passed. Then the phone rang. Blocked number. I picked up. Hello. Silence. Then her voice. Small, shaky. Emily. I didn't respond. Is this your company? Are you the one who bought the house? I let the silence linger. Then evenly. Yes. Another pause. Why? I closed my eyes. Thought about the yellow walls, the toolbox, the lease termination notice. To remind you, I said slowly, that the daughter you erased just bought your home out from under you. I expected them to come knocking. But they didn't, not right away. When the certified letters were signed for 1 at the house, 1 at Mom's Pizza box, I waited. I waited for the explosion, for the indignation, for someone to call and scream, but all I got was silence. Then, on the 5th day, my phone rang. It was Nathan. His voice was clipped, distant. Is this some kind of mistake, he asked. No, I said, it's not. I could almost hear the wheels turning in his head. Why would you even want the house? I smiled into the silence. That house was mine long before it was ever yours. Click. He hung up. 2 days later, a lawyer emailed me a vague, poorly written letter demanding a chance to repurchase the property. I replied with 1 sentence, the property is no longer for sale. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Mom. She didn't even pretend. Emily, please, be reasonable. Her voice was sharper than I remembered, with none of the warmth she used to pour over Nathan. You can't just buy your family's house out from under them. I took a long breath. You already did that to me, I said quietly. This isn't about you, she snapped. That house was never yours. No, I agreed, because you made sure of that. There was a long silence. then softer, more calculated. "We don't have anywhere else to go." And there it was. The truth. For all the bravado, they were stuck. The mortgage had defaulted. Their credit was wrecked. Nathan hadn't worked a real job in years. Mom's pension barely covered groceries. They thought they'd live off that house forever. They thought wrong. "I'm not evicting you," I said. "You have 30 days. "That's not enough time," she hissed. "It's the time the bank would have given you if I hadn't stepped in." "But you're our daughter." I almost laughed. "You made it very clear I wasn't." Click. The next day, a car pulled into my office parking lot. I knew it before I looked up. It was Nathan. He looked older, heavier, like the weight of his own laziness had finally settled in his bones. He didn't ask to come in, just stood at the front desk, trying to look casual. When I walked out to meet him, he gave me a tired smile. "Look, he started, I know things got messy." I crossed my arms. He shifted, "But this is our family home." He looked around as if someone would back him up. "I grew up there," he said. "So did I replied. He frowned. "Yeah, but I cut in, inherited it, got handed it on a silver platter, had to do absolutely nothing while I worked 2 jobs to survive." He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. "You never visited Dad when he was dying. You let me clean up his blood. You let me hold his hand while he took his last breath." Nathan looked down. "I didn't know what to do," he muttered. "You didn't even try?" I took out a folder and handed it to him. "What's this?" "Your official notice, 30 days. After that, any remaining property will be removed." His hand shook as he took it. "I thought we were family," he said quietly. "We were," I replied, "until family meant you get everything and I get out." He didn't say goodbye. He just left. The next 4 weeks passed in a blur. I hired a property management company to oversee the transition. They checked in weekly, ensuring the home was respected while still occupied. I didn't show up, didn't spy, didn't gloat. That wasn't the point. The point was power, control, peace. And when the 30th day arrived, I got an email. They were gone. The house was empty. No damage, no mess, just gone. I drove to 48 Maple Ridge that evening, for the first time in years. The porch light was off. The windows were dark. I walked up the front steps, key in hand. The key that should have always been mine. The moment the lock clicked open, something shifted inside me. I stepped into the foyer. It smelled like lemon cleaner and old wood. My footsteps echoed on the floorboards Nathan and I used to race down as kids. I walked room to room. The dining table was gone. So was Mom's favorite china cabinet. But the walls remained. The same pale paint. The same faint crack in the hallway ceiling Dad never fixed. I sat on the stairs for a long time. Not crying. Not angry. Just breathing. Breathing in the proof. That I'd done it. That I'd taken back what was stolen without threats. Without violence. Just strategy. Just patience. Just power. I didn't move in. Didn't need to. I had a beautiful condo in Louisville and a life I built myself. But I kept the house. Renovated it. Updated the wiring. Refinished the floors. Turned the guest room into an office. Then I rented it out to a young single mother with 2 daughters. She walked through the house on her tour, smiling. "This place just feels like a second chance," she said. I handed her the keys. "It is," I told her. What I didn't say was that it was mine too. My second chance. My justice. Silent, strategic, complete. You'd think it would end there? With them gone? With the house mine? With justice, clean and quiet, finally served. But revenge, real revenge, doesn't always end with a slammed door. It echoes. The week after they moved out, I got another letter. Handwritten, sloppy, no return address. It was from my mother. I almost didn't open it, almost threw it away. But curiosity won. Inside, 3 pages of her voice, half apology, half manipulation. She wrote that she never meant to hurt me, that she only wanted to protect Nathan, that she thought men needed more, that I'd always been strong. That's why she didn't worry about me. 'Cause I always figured it out. I read that sentence over and over. I didn't give you anything because I knew you'd survive. Like that was love. Like erasing me was a compliment. I folded the letter slowly, put it in a drawer I never opened again. That day I made a decision. I wasn't going to be their mistake-turned-success story. I was going to be a name they never forgot. I started speaking, telling my story in quiet rooms, at real estate panels, on women's business podcasts, not with anger, but with precision. I talked about the gender wealth gap, about inheritance inequality, about what happens when girls are raised to be invisible. My story struck nerves. People wrote to me, said they saw themselves in my words, said they'd been the forgotten daughter, the overlooked sister, the second-born shadow. And something changed. I wasn't just Emily Carter, the girl who lost her house. I was the woman who bought it back and more. I invested in more properties, became a mentor for young women starting in real estate, started a nonprofit to help single mothers get housing support. I named it The Second Key, because sometimes life locks you out of what you deserve. And sometimes you learn how to pick the lock, or better yet, buy the entire building. But not all doors stayed closed. One afternoon, nearly a year after I'd taken the house, I ran into Nathan at a grocery store in Lexington. He looked tired. Older, he pushed a half-empty cart and wore a name badge from a warehouse job. Our eyes met across the produce aisle. He froze. I walked right past him. Didn't nod, didn't speak, but I heard his voice behind me. Emily, I stopped, turned slightly. His eyes were red, not from tears, just worn. I'm working now, he said, as if that erased everything. That's good, I replied. He stepped forward, unsure. I was stupid, he said. I know that now. I tilted my head. You knew it then. He flinched. I was just scared, Mom said. I held up a hand. I said, don't blame her for your choices. You were grown. You made them. He looked down. I lost everything, he said quietly. No, I said, you just never earned it. He nodded, slowly, then reached into his coat pocket, pulled out something small. It was Dad's old watch, the one he'd taken, the one I used to wind every Sunday afternoon when I was 8. He held it out. I want you to have it, he said. I stared at it. It looked smaller now. Not magical. Not powerful. Just a watch. I took it gently, slipped it into my pocket. Not for him. Not for nostalgia. But because I'd already earned it years ago. He didn't ask for anything else. Didn't beg. Didn't plead. And I didn't offer forgiveness. Some things don't get tied up with a bow. Some wounds stay open. But I drove home that night with the window down and the wind in my hair. The watch ticking in my coat. Not counting lost time, just marking the moment. I wasn't the girl from Lexington anymore. I wasn't the backup plan. I was the woman who bought the house they lived in. And I did it all that without saying a word. There's a moment after every battle, after every hard-won war, when silence settles like dust. It doesn't scream. It doesn't announce victory. It just arrives, slow and certain, like dawn. That's where I live now. In that quiet. But this quiet is not emptiness. It's power. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that demands to be noticed. This is the kind of power that doesn't need applause. Because I know what I did. I didn't just reclaim a house. I reclaimed a story, a bloodline, a name. After Nathan and my mother left, I stood in that house for hours. I touched every wall, ran my fingers across the doorframe where Nathan's height had been marked, each birthday, never mine. I opened every drawer, every closet. Some still smelled like them. Mom's perfume, Nathan's cheap cologne. It should have hurt, but it didn't, because they didn't win. They just left a hollow behind. And I filled it, not with furniture, with purpose. I renovated every inch, not for luxury, for legacy. Every tile I laid was a statement: you underestimated the wrong daughter. Every coat of paint said I'm still here. I replaced the kitchen countertops, refinished the floors Nathan scuffed up with cleats. I kept the crack in the hallway ceiling. Some scars deserve to stay. They remind you where you've been. I moved in for a short time, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to feel the space breathe with me in it. It was a strange kind of homecoming, one built not on love, but on resilience. Every morning I made coffee and watched the sunrise from the porch Dad once built. I sat in his old chair, not to remember him, to remind myself I came through. That grief didn't own me. That being forgotten didn't make me disappear. It made me dangerous, powerful, capable. I turned one of the bedrooms into a writing room. The walls were lined with books. And on the desk, a leather journal. Every night, I wrote, not for anyone else, just for me. I chronicled every betrayal. Every moment I stayed quiet when I wanted to scream. Every silent plan. Every step it took to reclaim what was mine. And then I shared it, slowly. An essay here, a podcast there. My story resonated. The woman who was disinherited and bought the family home out from under them. I became more than just a cautionary tale. I became a blueprint. I was invited to speak at conferences. Women approached me afterward with tears in their eyes. I was the second daughter, too, one whispered. Another hugged me and said, your story gave me the courage to walk away. And I realized this was the power they never gave me. So I built it, and then I gave it to others. I founded a nonprofit called The Second Key. We helped women navigate property law, helped them understand deeds, wills, equity, because power shouldn't be passed down through favoritism. It should be built, protected, and shared. Soon after, I received a letter, not from Nathan, not from my mother, from a teenage girl in Ohio. She wrote, I watched your video. My parents told me I wasn't smart enough to study law, but now I'm applying to college. I want to help women like you. I cried that night, not because I was sad, because finally, my story wasn't just mine. It was fuel. One spring afternoon, I returned to Lexington for a panel. The event was held at the university where Nathan once flunked out. Funny how circles close. After my talk, I walked the campus alone. No one recognized me. No one pointed, but one professor stopped me near the old law building. He said, I heard your story. Your voice matters. I thanked him. Then I walked back to my car parked, of course, in a reserved spot with my name on the permit. As I drove by 48 Maple Ridge, I slowed. The renters had decorated the porch with potted plants. Children's chalk drawings dotted the driveway. I smiled. That house had life in it again. Not entitlement. Not legacy. Just joy. They didn't know the battle that once happened there. They didn't need to. The house had healed, and so had I. That night, back in my condo in Louisville, I took out Dad's old watch, the one Nathan finally returned. I wound it, listened to it tick. It no longer felt like a stolen relic. It was just a watch, but the woman wearing it, she was unstoppable. And as I stood by the window, looking out over the city, I rebuilt myself in. I whispered into the dark. They gave everything to my brother, but I bought the house they live in. And now I own everything they thought I'd never have.